right, Steve. Now we're moving on to Big Ten Media Days. And again, we'll take your comments and questions there in the live chat with Ronnie Hickman, Jackson Smith-Njigba, and CJ Stroud headed to Indianapolis along with Ryan Day.
Yeah, and if anybody has any questions that they'd like us to ask any of these people, go ahead and post them now, and Mark can share them on here. But again, it's Ryan Day, the head coach, CJ Stroud, Jackson Smith-Njigba, and Ronnie Hickman. And, I think at face value, we accept that Ohio State had the best offense in college football last year. Sputtered in a couple of the games that they lost. Obviously, Oregon and Michigan, they didn't establish the run very well in those games. Stroud threw for 1,000,000 yards in defeat in both those games. I guess we feel like the offense is going to be very good again this year, and there may be some questions there. I would start with Hickman and the defense, and some of the questions I would like to ask him. And again, he can't tell you who's going to start and who's going to play and all these kind of things. It's really not the player's position to opine about, I think Court Williams should start at safety instead of Josh Proctor and all these other things. But just this new scheme and how spring football went, what they've done to acclimate themselves with the new scheme during the offseason. Is the new scheme built for them to beat Purdue, who throws it all over the lot? And is it also built to beat Michigan, who lined up and with two tight ends and ran the ball right down their throat in the snowstorm up there? Is it built to do both? Because if you want to win the national championship, you got to be able to defend both. And Georgia may show you one thing, Clemson may show you one thing, and then Alabama may show you something else if you get into the Final Four. And if it's not one of those three teams, it's somebody who's as good or better, obviously based on the season, whether, it's another game with Notre Dame or another game with Michigan or Texas A&M or, whoever bleeds in there somehow, from that. We're just looking at that preseason list of the other top schools. So to me, that would be a feeling that I would want to get from Ronnie Hickman is your thought about this defense, because last year, and you try and be nice when you're talking to people, but, let's be real between you and I and the fence post. It was so bad at times. And even the year before, it was cringeworthy bad at times that it needs a wholesale revamping. And a lot of the same names are going to play on defense. I mean, it's still Tommy Eichenberg. It's still Steele Chambers, Zach Harrison, Ronnie Hickman. The two corners are going to be the same, Cameron Brown and Denzel Burke. But does that extra year of experience and with new coaches giving them new perspectives, Iliano and Tim Walton doing the corners and Jim Knowles with the linebackers, does that change the perspectives? Does that change the results? So I think that'd be storylines that I would pursue with Ronnie Hickman. Which of the young defensive players has really caught his eye this summer? Who's really working their way into playing a lot? I think those are questions that are natural for him, and he's going to have to do a lot of discussion about the quality of the defense. I think in his 1 hour, he's going to be asked about 10 different times why it wasn't any good last year and why they expect it to be better. So he should brush up on his answers to those two questions in particular, because he's going to get them. What will happen is somebody will happen over there for 10 minutes, then they'll walk away, and somebody else will walk over and ask the same question. Invariably, that's what happens in an hour-long session. For CJ Stroud, I think you want to kind of get to his motivation and what is it that really pushes him. And he's always said the right things. And his play was almost uncanny at times last year with what he accomplished. And now you just question, does he rest on his laurels from last year and the records he set, or does he want to go back out there and get deep into some of these football games and throw a fifth, a sixth, the seventh touchdown pass? And what does that mean to him? And what, just what's driving him right now to be the best player he can be? And so I think, to me, that's probably get under the hood with him a little bit about what what's really driving him. And people are like, do you want to win the Heisman? And ask all these silly questions. Well, that's completely out of his control. It depends on the other 10 guys he's playing with, the plays that are called, the opponent, and what other people are doing. I've read some people were talking about the new quarterback at Oklahoma is going to put up, millions of yards, and he's going to win the Heisman. Stanford Steve, the guy who's the information guy for Van Pelt, Scott Van Pelt at ESPN, said his dark horse Heisman guy is the new quarterback at Oklahoma. Never heard of him. Whatever. Okay, if you say so.
From UCF.
Yeah, guy comes from UCF, so he's going to throw for 1 million yards in the hapless Big 12, and he's going to steal the Heisman Trophy. So, that's completely out of C.J. Stroud's control. I think there are a lot of people that look at the lay of the land and say, okay, Bryce Young won it last year. He was on arguably the best team in the regular season, and yet, C.J. Stroud, off what he did in the Rose Bowl, if he can do anything like that in several of his games this year, is going to put up just humongous numbers, 4,000 or 5,000 yards, whatever, and just obscene type numbers. So, what's out there? What's pushing him? And I'm not a person that likes to go up to somebody in the preseason and ask them, "Are you going to win the Heisman Trophy?" Just because it's 4 months until it's awarded, and 13 football games, and so many ups and downs. He could get knocked out of a game. He may miss a game. He missed a game last year. It was Akron, so they took an opportunity for him to have a week off and kind of regroup a little bit and get it going back the right direction after a couple of uneasy performances early. So that was the best thing that ever happened to him, because he came back and was just on fire from that moment on. So that's kind of what I would look at with him. Same thing with Smith-Njigba. What do you do? We saw what you did in the Rose Bowl, granted against, what was it, a couple guys that had moved over from offense to try and help the Utah defense. What is it that you do to kind of build and grow off what you were doing at the end of last season? You don't have Wilson and Olave to play off of. There'll be schools that, unlike Utah, will have two pretty good corners who can lock you down, and if there's nobody else that they need to worry about. And how are you going to overcome that? So to me, what has he done, and what's he going to do to take his game to another level, to where he is regarded as a top, 10 NFL draft pick like those guys were when they left. So, again, I would say with him, since he works so closely with the young wide receivers, who is he liking out of that group? Because it can't just be him. It's got to be Harrison. It's got to be Emeka Ibuka. It's got to be Julian Fleming. Maybe Cameron Babb is back healthy. And then those young guys, Kyon Grays, he was outstanding in the spring. Jared Burton was also outstanding in the spring, and a couple more guys coming in. So I want to see who's going to be in the top 5, who's in the top 3, and, what's that looking at. Then for Ryan Day, I'm open to whatever anybody, thinks we should ask Ryan Day, but I would say, how comfortable are you with Jim Knowles and what you saw in the spring with the defense? And Ryan Day has basically said it. And as a head coach, he probably should never have said this, but he, without saying it in manner of terms, did say, I want to just be the head coach of the offense, and I shouldn't have to walk down there and figure out what's going on with the defense. That's why I pay somebody to run the defense for me. And, I'm not a big fan of that. He's the Ohio State head football coach, so it's all part of his purview. But I get where he's coming from. He said, for this thing to be going good when we're rolling, I need to be doing this, and they need to be doing that. And that's getting stops, and didn't happen the last couple of years. So amazing what happens when you lose Chase Young and Jeffrey Okudah, the stops you don't get without blue chip players. But I think that was part and parcel of it.